Alright guys, here we go. In this video we got a 2000 Ford Ranger 3.0 liter. Came up with a P0340 code for the camshaft position synchronizer slash sensor. Went ahead and diagnosed it. Turned out to be the synchronizer needed to be replaced. The only reason for this video, I'm not going to show the DIY of it. I'm just going to basically give a brief explanation. There's a lot of videos out there showing how to replace the synchronizer, how to remove the cam sensor, and how to do an adjustment without putting it atop dead center. Well, I'm here to tell you that when this job gets done, I highly suggest that you take the time out to put it at top dead center. Back here, in the back side of this engine, right under here, those two bolts lie. That is the camshaft sensor. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it. It's located on the firewall on the passenger side, almost dead center, but it's got two bolts on top. Ford installed two 5.5 millimeter bolts on there. If you don't happen to have a 5.5 millimeter bolt, which is not something that most people may have, unless you have an arsenal of tools, which will be great, a 7/32 socket will work. So, just to give you a brief explanation here, when installing this synchronizer, I highly recommend that you take out spark plug number 1, which is on the right bank, passenger side, spark plug on the front closest to the radiator. That is top dead. That'll be number 1 in order to put it at top dead center. How do you put it at top dead center, you ask? Once you remove the spark plug, you can either stick a long screwdriver in there, unless you have a scope that you can put in with a camera. You can go ahead and put a long flathead screwdriver, spin the crank, which is down there. Crank is right. Sorry about that. It's a little hard to see from this angle. But you got the crank right below there. If I can get the camera to focus. Okay, so the crank is down there. It's got the teeth on the gear on the back side there. That's the crankshaft pulley. You put a 21 millimeter socket on that, and you will rotate it clockwise. Do not rotate it counterclockwise, because it can and will destroy the engine. So you're going to rotate it as you're tightening, which is to your right. With the flathead screwdriver and the number 1 insert of the spark plug, you're going to rotate that up until that spark plug screwdriver, that bank is going to rise to the top. The spark plug hole where the screwdriver is, that screwdriver is going to rise. It's going to come to a stop. Now, on the crank pulley itself, it'll have points, markings. Marking number 0 is the top dead center on the crankshaft. Very light on the markings. If you have a 99, 2000, 2001 or earlier, the crank may be slightly rusted and you may not be able to locate those points or those markings on there. So the best thing to do is take out number 1, raise it to the top. Once that screwdriver comes up top and it comes to a stop, that's your top dead center marking. If a screwdriver is not possible, you can get a wire hanger. Open up a wire hanger, stick it in the spark plug hole, wait till that, as you crank it clockwise, wait for that piston to rise to the top. Once the hanger comes to a stop, that is top dead center. At which point, you'll be able to install the the camshaft position sensor. Here I have the old synchronizer. The cam position sensor sits right on top with the two 5.5 or 7/32 bolts. You can see the vanes on the synchronizer that engages onto your cam, the vanes on the cam. So what's going to happen is when that engine is at top dead center, this synchronizer comes with a tool. In most cases, you'll have a tool that comes with it. The tab that spins around the inside should be at the midway point of that big gap there. Now, if you have the tool that comes with it, the tool will align that tab at center. With that tool, that'll assure you that that tab is at center point, which would allow it to become top dead center. Now, when removing off the synchronizer, besides the two 7/32 or 5.5 millimeter bolts, there is a 10 millimeter bolt that holds the synchronizer in place to the block. The bolt itself, the 10 millimeter hole, holds this part of the synchronizer down into the block. Once the engine is at top dead center, you'll take this with the tool aligning this tab. The tool is only going to fit one way, and that one way will align this tab at center point here. When that tool is installed, you'll be able to slide this into its home. However, when it goes in, it has to be in at a certain degree. Typically, depending on where you read and what you look up, they can tell you is anywhere from a 15 degree to a 28 degree recommended by Ford. The best way to figure out where that cam synchronizer is going to sit perfect is by with the tool has an arrow up top. If you line up the arrow with the 10 millimeter bolt that holds this base in place, that will allow you to line up the sensor right at top dead center. Also, once it lines up, the sensor, the vanes will be able to line up with the cam. If it's not lined up, the synchronizer will not fall in its place. When it does line up, it may not fall where it should be, so you have to make sure that that synchronizer is at top dead center. And the best way is, if you have the tool which has an arrow on it, that tool, make sure that arrow faces the 10 millimeter bolt hole. As long as it's facing the 10 millimeter bolt hole, you can fasten it all up, take the tool off, and put the two 7/32 bolts, the 10 millimeter bolt, plug it back in, fire it right up. If you do not line it up correctly, you will get a P1309 code. The 1309 code is a misfire code. With that multiple cylinder misfire code, the vehicle is going to idle rough. You may have a high idle, you may have a low idle, but however, the worst of it, the check engine light will not shut off. In order to keep the light off and get the vehicle to its best performance, I highly suggest you get the tool. It gets aligned 100%, and it'll avoid any issues with timing. This right here is a part number from Ford. If you need it, F58E12131-AB. If you have any questions, feel free to inbox me. I will take a quick view of what the tool that comes with it looks like. This right here, guys, is a plastic tool that comes with it. Some come plastic, some come metal. That's the arrow that faces up top. As you can see, you flip it over. It's got one opening where the tab is going to meet dead center. That opening shows the tab where it meets right at center point. No further out, no further in. Once that gets put into the synchronizer itself, you line up that arrow with the bolt. It'll line you up at best about 22.5 to 28 degrees. At which point you should be able to tighten it up. 10 millimeter bolt back in, two 7/32 or 5.5 millimeter bolts installed. Wire it up, plugs back in, and fire it right up. If you have any questions, feel free to inbox me. Thanks. Good luck.